Welcome to the Vold Revolution channel. Today, we're doing a deep dive into a really fantastic book, The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf Dobelli.
It's great to be here. And this book, it's something special. It's all about those common thinking mistakes, the little mental traps we fall into in our daily lives.
Exactly. And our goal today is to provide a really comprehensive summary, but to explain it all in simple terms. We're going to try and avoid all the complicated jargon.
So it should be an enjoyable, but, a really insightful discussion.
And the book's core premise isn't just about how to think well. It's more about showing us how our own brains deceive us, and crucially, how we can start to avoid it.
Right. We've structured this deep dive into about 7 main chapters, grouping the book's content thematically to make it a bit easier to digest.
We'll be starting with the power of detaching from our emotions, then moving into how to recognize thinking mistakes, the importance of critical thinking, and so much more. We'll even end with a review of 5 key ways to think more clearly.
It's a full toolkit, so are you ready?
Let's begin. Let's find out more.
It is absolutely fantastic to be here to break this one down. Usually when we dive into self-improvement or business literature, the focus is entirely on addition.
Addition, what do you mean by that?
The author always wants you to add a new habit, learn a new skill, maybe buy a new piece of software or, adopt a new morning routine. But Rolf Dobelli, he just flips that entire industry on its head.
That's what struck me immediately. This feels almost like an anti-self-help book.
It really does.
Instead of telling you how to be some kind of genius, he's basically just saying, hey, just stop being irrational and you'll probably be fine.
That is the core thesis. It's what he calls the via negativa.
The negative path.
The negative path to success. The argument is, look, we can't say with 100% certainty what brings success. There are just too many variables, too much luck, too much chaos in the world.
Right.
But, and this is the key, we can say with almost absolute certainty what destroys success. We know what causes failure.
So the logic is, if you just eliminate the errors, if you cut out the downside...
The upside tends to take care of itself.
It's like that old story about Michelangelo carving David. He didn't add the statue, he just removed everything that wasn't David.
Precisely. And before we get into the specific errors, and trust me, there are a lot of them lurking in our brains, we have to look at the origin story of this book, because it really sets the stage for why this isn't just some dry academic text.
Yeah, that was interesting. Dobelli didn't start out as a cognitive psychologist. He was a novelist and a businessman.
Right.
And he describes this pivotal moment where he felt like a total imposter. He was invited to this, what did he call it? An informal exchange of intellectuals in Munich.
Just that phrase, exchange of intellectuals, is enough to give anyone a panic attack.
Exactly. So he's sitting there, probably sweating, at a table with Nassim Taleb, the guy who wrote The Black Swan, who at the time was this really intense Wall Street trader.
And Dobelli felt completely out of his depth.
Totally. Until the conversation shifted. They didn't bond over philosophy or art. They bonded over the systematic errors that CEOs and business leaders make.
And that was the spark. They realized that even the smartest people in the room, the captains of industry, the political leaders, the people running the entire economy, they all make the same mistakes.
Okay, so let's unpack that term, systematic deviations, because I think we all like to believe our mistakes are unique. I just had a bad day or I was tired.
Right, we personalize them.
But you're saying we are actually wired to make the exact same mistake in the exact same way over and over again.
We are. Think of it like a software bug that is just hardwired into the human operating system. We consistently overestimate our own knowledge. That's the overconfidence effect.
Okay.
We consistently fear losing something more than we value gaining that same thing. These errors repeat through generations, through centuries. Dobelli uses this fantastic analogy of dirty laundry.
I remember that one. He says the errors pile up in one specific corner.
Right. If you imagine your mind as a room, the errors aren't just scattered everywhere. You might be perfectly rational when you're, say, fixing a toaster or doing basic arithmetic.
Sure.
But the moment you walk into the overconfidence corner or the social proof corner, suddenly all that logic disappears and the dirty laundry just piles up.
So the mission of this deep dive isn't to fix our entire personality. We don't need a brain transplant.
Not at all.
We just need to go into those specific corners and, well, do the laundry.
Exactly. And that brings us right back to that concept of the via negativa. We live in a world that is obsessed with the new gadgets, new strategies, new life hacks. But Dobelli argues we don't need extra cunning or more new ideas for prosperity. We just need less irrationality.
It's almost like an insurance policy.
That is exactly how he puts it. Understanding these fallacies is an insurance policy against self-induced unhappiness.
Well,
If you can eliminate the downside, all these cognitive errors, you're already ahead of 90% of the population.
yeah. I really like that approach. It actually feels achievable. So, okay, let's dive into the first big chunk of this Laundra pile. Chapter 2 covers the power of emotional detachment.
A huge one.
And the first item on the list is something I think every single listener has struggled with, probably within the last week. The sunk cost fallacy.
Ah, yes. The Concord effect.
Yeah.
This is one of the most pervasive traps in human history, I think.
Dobelli tells this incredibly relatable story about whispering to his wife in a cinema. The movie is just absolute garbage.
We've all been there.
The script is bad, the acting is worse. He leans over and says, "Let's go home." But his wife looks at him like he's crazy and says, "No way, we spent $30 on these tickets."
And that right there is the fallacy in a nutshell. The $30 is gone. It has left your wallet. It belongs to the theater owner now.
Right. It's a past event.
Whether you stay and suffer through that bad movie or leave and go have a nice walk or a dinner, that money is not coming back.
But it feels like waste. That's the emotional hook, isn't it? If I walk out, I've wasted the money.
That's the emotional trap. But the rational perspective, the detached perspective, says you have already spent the money. The only variable you can control now is your time. So do you want to spend the next 2 hours in misery or do something else? By staying, you're actually paying a double cost. You paid the money, and now you're paying with your time.
You mentioned the Concorde effect. That refers to the supersonic jet, right?
Yes, the joint project between Britain and France. They knew long, long before it launched that it would never be profitable. It was a financial black hole.
So why keep going?
They kept pouring money in. Why? To save face. Because they had already invested so much.
We've come this far.
That phrase is the siren song of the sunk cost fallacy. Whether it's a failing business project, a bad book you're halfway through, or even a troubled relationship, we think that past investment justifies continuing.
It's so hard to let go.
But thinking clearly means only future costs and benefits matter. You have to be cold about the past. The past is a sunk cost. It's irrelevant to the decision you make right now.
Speaking of being cold versus emotional, let's talk about the affect-humistic. This one really stood out to me because it shows how even our vocabulary triggers our risk assessment.
This is huge. We like to think we calculate risk like a computer, but we really, really don't. We are slaves to our immediate emotions, our affects.
Okay, so give me an example.
If I say the word gunfire, what do you feel?
Danger, fear, something negative.
Exactly. Immediate withdrawal. And if I say luxury,
Comfort, something nice, positive.
that split-second emotional reaction drives your decision-making before your logic even kicks in. We tend to confuse risk and benefit based on how much we like something.
So you're saying we mix them up? Because usually we think high risk equals high reward, right? They're separate things.
In a rational market, yes. But in the human brain, they are completely entangled. Take motorbikes, for example. If you love motorbikes, if the idea of them triggers a positive affect, you will irrationally minimize the risks and inflate the benefits.
You'll think, oh, it's not that dangerous, and the feeling of freedom is priceless.
Exactly. But if you hate motorbikes,
Then you'll do the opposite. You'll overestimate the risk and downplay any benefit.
a rational mind should treat risk and benefit as independent variables. But our emotional mind ties them together. If we like it, it must be safe. If we hate it, it must be dangerous.
That is a dangerous blind spot. And it leads right into another emotional trap that Dobelli highlights, loss aversion. This explains why we hold on to losing stocks or won't throw out old clothes.
Loss aversion is deep coding. I mean, it goes way back to our evolutionary history. Imagine you're a hunter-gatherer 50,000 years ago. You have just enough food to survive the winter.
Okay.
If you make a mistake and lose that food or get injured trying to get more, you die.
So we are literally the descendants of the cautious ones.
Exactly. The risk takers who gambled their food supply, well, they usually didn't survive to pass on their genes. We are wired to protect what we have.
So mathematically, how does this play out in the modern world? How strong is this feeling?
The empirical studies suggest a loss weighs about twice as much as a similar gain.
Twice as much.
Yeah. So finding $100 on the street feels good, but losing $100 from your wallet feels terrible. About twice as terrible as finding it felt good.
Dobelli tells that amazing story about the multimillionaire who was distraught over losing a single $100 bill.
Right. The man is worth millions. His investment portfolio probably fluctuates by thousands of dollars every single second. But that physical loss of the $100 bill just hijacked his emotions.
Yeah.
It was a complete waste of emotional energy.
And of course, marketing people know this, don't they? I feel like I see this in advertisements all the time.
They absolutely do. If you're selling home insulation, you don't just say, you'll save money. That's a gain frame, and it's pretty weak.
So what do?
You say, you are losing money every single day you don't have this. The fear of loss is a much, much stronger motivator than the prospect of gain.
It's amazing how easily we can be manipulated just because of how our brains are wired. Okay, let's move to chapter 3, because this is all about how we see the world, or rather, how we see patterns that might not even be there, recognizing our thinking mistakes.
This brings us to survivorship bias. And this is one of the most vital concepts for anyone trying to understand what success really is.
This is the story of Rick, the aspiring rock star. I honestly felt bad for Rick reading this part.
Poor Rick. He looks around and he sees rock stars everywhere. On TV, on Spotify, in magazines. He thinks, wow, there are so many successful musicians. I can do this too. Success must be common.
He assumes success is the norm because that's all he ever sees.
Exactly. Because the failures, the thousands upon thousands of musicians who never got signed, who play in empty basements, who went back to their day jobs, they're invisible.
Right, the media doesn't report on the band that broke up.
So we systematically overestimate our chances of success because we only see the survivors.
Dobelli also mentions the Dow Jones Index as well. That really clicked for me. The index is just a list of the winners.
It is. It consists only of the companies that survived and grew. It quietly kicks out the companies that failed or went bankrupt. So if you just look at the index, you think, wow, business is generally stable and profitable. You're not seeing the corporate graveyard.
So the antidote is what? To go visit the cemetery.
Metaphorically, yes.
Mm-hmm.
To cure survivorship bias, you have to actively look for the failures. You have to dig into the projects that didn't work, the businesses that went under. It's a sad walk, as Dobelli says, but it clears the mind.
It makes you realize that for every successful author, there are 100 who sold a few copies and 10,000 who never even got published.
Precisely.
Speaking of confusing cause and effect, let's talk about the swimmer's body illusion. This one actually made me laugh because I've fallen for it so many times with fitness trends.
We all have. We look at professional swimmers, we think, look at that physique. Broad shoulders, lean waist. If I just swim a lot, I'll get that body.
But Dobelli says that's completely backward.
Right. Professional swimmers don't have those bodies because they swim. They're good swimmers because they were born with that specific physique. It's a selection factor, not a result.
It's kind of like looking at a makeup ad. The model isn't beautiful because of the makeup. She was hired for the ad because she was already beautiful.
Exactly. And this applies to institutions, too. Does Harvard make you smarter? Or does Harvard just recruit the smartest people to begin with?
That is a really provocative question. It makes you rethink the value of the degree versus the value of their screening process.
It forces us to be skeptical of all these self-help books and secrets of success. Are these habits actually creating the success, or are we just looking at people who are, born happy or born smart and then trying to mimic their morning routine?
Don't just copy the habits of successful people. That's a tough pill to swallow, but it really does make sense. Now, what about when we see things that really aren't there at all? The clustering illusion.
The human brain is a pattern-seeking machine. We just can't handle randomness. If we see a cloud, we see a dragon. If we see a piece of toast, we see a face.
The grilled cheese sandwich that sold for $28,000?
A classic case. But it's really dangerous in finance. You see a pattern in stock movements. Up, down, up, and you think it means something. You think you've cracked the code.
It's usually just
random noise.
I loved the expert insight on this one. He quotes, "If God wanted to reveal himself, he'd probably do it on CNN, not on a pancake."
It sums it up perfectly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We have to regain our skepticism. If you think you spot a pattern, your first assumption should be that it's just chance.
This leads us perfectly into chapter 4, critical thinking and skepticism. Because if we can't trust our own eyes sometimes, we definitely have to be careful about trusting the crowd.
Social proof. The herd instinct. This is so deeply hardwired. If you walk out on the street and you see 50 people staring up at the sky, you are going to look up. You can't help it.
And evolutionarily, that makes perfect sense. If the rest of the group is running from a lion, you don't want to be the one standing there debating if it's really a lion.
Precisely. Being outside the group meant death. But today, social proof means buying into investment bubbles or wearing terrible fashion trends, or more dangerously following dangerous ideologies.
Dobelli brings up that Joseph Goebbels speech from 1943.
It's a chilling example. Goebbels asks the crowd, "Do you want total war?" And the crowd just roars, "Yes."
Wow.
If you ask those people individually, in a quiet room, they probably would have said no. But in the herd, swept up by the momentum, they completely lose their critical faculties.
There's also the Solomon Asch experiment, which is less terrifying, but just as revealing about human nature.
The line length experiment. So you put a subject in a room with a bunch of actors. The actors all intentionally identify the wrong line as the longest one.
And the test subject just goes along with it.
A huge percentage of people will agree with the group, even though their own eyes tell them it's clearly wrong. We would rather be wrong with the group than right and all alone.
That is profound. It's that immense pressure to conform. And then there's the one he calls the father of all fallacies, confirmation bias.
Yes. If you take only one thing away from this entire deep dive, let it be this one. Confirmation bias is our tendency to filter out any new information that contradicts what we already believe.
We treat our beliefs like they're these precious pets. We have to protect them.
We do.
Yeah.
And when we see evidence that proves us wrong, we don't say, "Oh, I was wrong." We label it a special case. We just dismiss it as an anomaly.
So how do we fight this? It seems so fundamental. Dobelli quotes Arthur Quiller Couch, "Murder your darlings."
It's a writing term, but it applies perfectly to thinking. You have to actively hunt for disconfirming evidence. Darwin is famous for this.
Oh, really?
Whenever he found a fact that contradicted his theory of evolution, he wrote it down immediately. He knew his brain would subconsciously try to forget it or explain it away.
That's such a good habit. Literally writing down the things that prove you wrong.
It's painful, but it's absolutely necessary. And along with questioning ourselves, we have to question authority, which brings us to authority bias.
The Milgram experiments immediately come to mind here, but Dobelli also talks about the history of medicine, which is just as shocking.
For centuries, doctors prescribed bloodletting for almost everything. It was harmful. It actively killed people. But because the experts said it was the right thing to do, nobody questioned it.
And in modern times, we saw this in the 2008 financial crisis. The experts completely failed to predict it.
And yet we still look to them as if they are oracles. Thinking clearly means separating the message from the messenger. Just because someone is wearing a white coat or an expensive suit doesn't mean they are right.
All right, let's move on to chapter 5. This one is about clarifying the mind through simplicity. And I feel like my brain is constantly cluttered, so Dobelli really addresses this with the paradox of choice.
We think more choice is better. We crave options. But beyond a certain point, choice acts like a paralysis. It just drains us.
He talks about IKEA here, which I think every single person listening can relate to.
Yes, the maze of IKEA. By the time you get to the checkout, you are exhausted. Why? Because you've made hundreds of tiny decisions. White lamp or black lamp. Soft mattress or hard mattress. This causes decision fatigue.
And he says our willpower is like a battery.
Exactly. And it runs on glucose. When you make too many choices, your battery drains. That's why IKEA cleverly puts the food court right in the middle to refuel your decision-making power with sugar and meatballs.
So the solution is just to settle for good enough.
Yes. Don't over-optimize everything. Perfection is the enemy of the good. You have to save your decision-making energy for the things that actually matter.
And speaking of things that drain our energy, the news illusion. Dobelli has a very, very strong stance on this.
He does. He says news is to the mind what sugar is to the body. It's appetizing, it's easy to digest, but it's toxic in large quantities.
It's often irrelevant, right? Like, knowing about a celebrity scandal or some minor political gaffe on the other side of the world doesn't actually help me make better decisions in my own life.
Not at all. It kills creativity and it increases anxiety. He suggests a radical diet. Just eliminate the news. Focus on long-form content, books, underlying processes, not the sensational headlines.
That connects really well to the twaddle tendency.
A great name for a bias.
It is. The idea that if you have nothing to say, you should just say nothing.
We often use complexity to mask the fact that we don't know what we're talking about. You see this in business and academia and the art world. But clear thoughts result in clear language. If someone is speaking in riddles or drowning you in jargon, it's usually a sign they haven't clarified their own thinking first.
Okay, let's move to chapter 6, building strong thought patterns. This is where we get into how we judge success and failure. starting with the outcome bias.
This is the success monkey story. It's a great thought experiment. Imagine you have a million monkeys speculating on the stock market. Purely by chance, half will win and half will lose each week.
Right, you just keep cutting the group in half. And eventually, after about 20 weeks, you're left with one monkey who has picked the right stock every single time.
The success monkey. Now, the media will descend. They'll interview this monkey. They'll ask what bananas he eats, how he grooms himself, what his morning routine is. They'll look for the secret to his success.
But it was just luck, pure chance.
Pure randomness. But we judge the decision by the outcome. If the result is good, we automatically assume the process was good. If the result is bad, we assume the process was flawed.
He uses the example of Pearl Harbor, right?
Exactly. In hindsight, it looks obvious that the base should have been evacuated, but at the time, the intelligence was confusing and contradictory. We can't judge the decision they made then based on the result that we know now. We have to evaluate the process.
That ties right into the concept of alternative paths. This is a little bit philosophical, but I really like it.
It's the idea that reality, what actually happened, is just one of many possible outcomes that could have happened. And that means risk is often invisible.
He compares earning $10 million through hard labor versus earning it by playing Russian roulette.
If you win at Russian roulette, you have $10 million. If you work hard for years, you have $10 million. The outcome is identical.
But they're not the same.
The quality of the success is completely different. The Russian roulette winner took a path where the alternative was death.
So we have to constantly consider what could have happened but didn't.
Always. Just because a risk didn't bite you this time doesn't mean it wasn't there.
One of my favorite concepts from the whole book is in this chapter, the circle of competence. This comes from Warren Buffett.
It's so simple but so powerful. Just draw a circle around the things you truly deeply understand. Inside that circle, you are a professional. Outside that circle, you are an amateur.
And the key is knowing exactly where that boundary is.
Yes, and never stepping outside of it without extreme caution. Dobelli tells the brilliant story of Max Planck, the physicist, and his chauffeur.
Oh, this one is a classic. Tell the story.
So, Planck is touring around Germany giving this dense lecture on quantum mechanics. His chauffeur hears it so many times, he memorizes it word for word. And one day he says, "Professor Planck, this must be boring for you. I can give this lecture. You should sit in the audience and wear my chauffeur's cap."
And they actually switch places.
They switch. The chauffeur gets up and gives the lecture perfectly. But then, a physicist in the back of the room stands up and asks a really difficult technical follow-up question.
Oh no, he's caught.
The chauffeur doesn't miss a beat. He just says, "I am surprised to hear such a simple question in an advanced city like Munich. To answer it, I will ask my chauffeur."
That is brilliant.
It's funny, but it perfectly illustrates the difference between chauffeur knowledge, which is just parroting information, and Planck knowledge, which is deep, real understanding. We have to make sure we aren't just being chauffeurs in our own lives.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. We're at chapter 7 now. Let's synthesize all of this. We promised the listener a toolshed at the beginning, a review of 5 concrete ways to think clearly based on everything we've just discussed.
Let's break them down. This is the practical takeaway.
Okay, way number 1, the via negativa.
This is the foundation of the whole book. Don't try to be a genius, just try not to be an idiot. Avoid the downfalls, avoid the sunk costs, the herd instinct, the authority bias, and success will generally follow. It's about subtraction, not addition.
Way number 2, the premortem.
I love this one. It's a technique that helps fight the overconfidence we talked about. Before you start a big project, you imagine it is a year from now and the project has failed catastrophically.
And then what?
Then you write the history of why it failed.
So you force your brain to find all the cracks and weak spots before you even start.
Exactly. It completely breaks the optimism bias and reveals hidden risks.
Okay, very useful. Way number 3, distinguish intuition versus logic.
This connects directly to that circle of competence. If it's a small decision, like Coke versus Pepsi, just trust your gut. If it's a problem that is deep within your expertise, your Planck knowledge, trust your gut.
But if it's a high-stakes, complex decision outside your circle,
that's when you have to switch to cold thinking. You have to slow down, use logic, use a checklist. Don't let the effect heuristic drive the car.
Makes sense. Way number 4, skepticism of stories.
This is about fighting the story bias. We have to be suspicious of plausible stories. We try to fit history into these neat narratives like the king died and then the queen died of grief.
But real life is messier.
So much messier and more random. The real story might be the king died and then the queen died of a completely unrelated illness. If a story sounds too perfect, it's probably hiding something.
And finally, way number 5, think less.
To think better, think less. Don't waste your blood sugar, your willpower, your cognitive energy on small, insignificant choices. Eliminate the noise, eliminate the news, eliminate the clutter. Save your best, clearest cognitive power for the big stuff that actually matters.
It's so fascinating. It seems like by acknowledging that our brains are fundamentally flawed, we actually become more powerful thinkers.
That's the entire paradox, isn't it? Humility in the face of our own biology is the very first step to achieving true clarity.
So here's a final thought for everyone listening to mull over. We've talked about how we can't always trust our own memories, our own pattern recognition, or even the experts. It makes you wonder, if we could strip away all these biases, all these stories we tell ourselves to make sense of the world, who are we, really? Are we that rational thinker underneath it all, or are we just the sum of our cognitive errors, constantly trying to make sense of the chaos?
That is the ultimate question, isn't it? Perhaps the self is just the biggest story of them all.
Thank you for watching, B. Please like, share, subscribe, and follow up with us on the next topic. Come back to continue the art of thinking clearly. Today, we are stripping things down. And I don't mean we're, just decluttering our closets. I mean, we're literally going to try and chisel away at the architecture of how we think.
Right.
We often view intelligence as this additive process. You read more books, learn more facts, get more models.
You add to the pile?
Exactly. You build the library higher. But the source material we're diving into today, Rolf Dobelli's The Art of Thinking Clearly, it just flips that whole idea on its head.
It really does.
It suggests the path to a better life, to better decisions, isn't about what you add. It's all about what you remove.
It's such a fascinating inversion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we're conditioned, from school onwards, to look for the secret ingredient.
Yeah, the hack, the one thing that will fix everything.
Exactly. The key to happiness, the blueprint for wealth. We're always hunting for the positive thing that will solve the equation of our lives. But Dobelli, he introduces this concept of the via negativa.
The via negativa, that sounds theological.
It is, originally. It comes from the idea that the divine is so complex, you can't really say what God is. You can only say what God is not.
Okay.
And Dobelli just takes this high concept idea and applies it to cold, hard rationality.
So instead of trying to define the perfect life, we just define what ruins a life.
Precisely. His argument is that we can't really pinpoint what makes us happy or successful. The variables are infinite luck, timing, where you were born.
Too many moving parts.
Way too many. But, and this is the key, we can pinpoint with frightening accuracy what destroys success. We know what stupidity looks like. We know what failure looks like.
We've all seen it.
We've all seen it. So the strategy becomes avoiding a negative, not just blindly chasing the positive. If you just avoid the big errors, success tends to take care of itself.
I love the analogy he uses right at the start. It's about Michelangelo, and I feel like it just sets the stage perfectly for this whole idea.
It really does. The legend is that someone, maybe the Pope, asked Michelangelo, "How did you do it? What's the secret to creating the statue of David?"
Right, this masterpiece of all masterpieces.
And Michelangelo's answer was so simple. He just said, "It's simple. I removed everything that is not David."
I removed everything that is not David. Wow, that is such a powerful image.
Isn't it?
The masterpiece was already in the marble. He didn't build it, he just revealed it. He hacked away the junk.
Exactly.
And that's the premise of this deep dive today. We aren't trying to build a new brain or install a new operating system. We're just going to chip away at the cognitive biases, the logical fallacies, all the mental clutter that keeps us from thinking clearly. We're removing the excess stone.
And to do that, you have to understand why the clutter is even there. Because it's not just random. It's not that we're lazy or stupid.
No.
Dobelli makes it really clear. This is a biological thing. He uses this great image of the hunter-gatherer in a Hugo Boss suit.
Which is a hilarious visual. I'm just picturing a caveman checking stock quotes on his phone.
It is, but it's also really profound. If you took a human from 50,000 years ago, cleaned him up, gave him a haircut and a nice suit, he'd look totally normal on Wall Street.
Biologically, we're identical.
Exactly. Our hardware hasn't changed in millennia, but our environment, our software, it's changed radically. Our brains are optimized for a world of, what, 50 people in a tribe.
Right, simple survival. Is that a tiger? Run. Is that a berry? Eat.
The feedback loops were immediate. You make a mistake, you starve, or you get eaten. Simple as that.
And now
Now we're dealing with global markets, digital information overload, social networks with millions of people. The saber-toothed tiger is now a passive-aggressive email from your boss.
or a stock market crash.
Exactly.
Right.
And our brains are still reacting with that old hardware. We're using shortcuts, heuristics, that were designed for the Stone Age, but we're trying to apply them in the information age. And that mismatch is what creates these cognitive biases.
We're running Windows 95 software in a supercomputer world.
And it's crashing all the time.
Okay, so we've got a lot of ground to cover to try and patch this software. Here's our roadmap for this deep dive. We're going to break it into 3 main pillars.
Sounds good.
First, we're going to look at achieving mental clarity through simplification and focus. Basically, how to stop drowning in all the noise.
Mm-hmm.
Second, we'll talk about building resilient thought patterns. This is all about how we adapt or, fail to adapt to new information.
Especially uncomfortable information.
Yes. And finally, we're going to do a rapid-fire review of a Thinking Clearly toolkit. 5 specific tools you can use right away to check your own thinking.
I like it. A solid plan.
Great. So let's jump into this first pillar, achieving mental clarity through simplification and focus. We live in a world that just screams, more is better. More news, more options, more data.
The fear of missing out.
Totally. If you aren't consuming everything, you feel like you're falling behind. But Dobelli argues this more is actually poisoning our ability to think, and he starts with a really controversial one, the news illusion.
This is chapter 99, and it's a bit of a personal crusade for him. He basically argues that news is to the mind what sugar is to the body.
What sugar is to the body? Okay, unpack that.
It's appetizing, it's easy to digest, it gives you this quick little spike of stimulation, and it's incredibly harmful in large quantities.
I can feel people gripping their phones tighter right now. I mean, we feel like we have a civic duty to be informed, right?
You do. We equate watching the news with understanding the world. But Dobelli asks a really hard question. Are you actually informed?
And his answer is no.
A hard no. He says most news is irrelevant, short-term, and designed to trigger an emotional response. It gives you a totally distorted mental map of risk.
How so?
Well, if you watch the nightly news, you'd think your biggest risks are like terrorism or plane crashes or shark attacks. They're sensational, they're visual.
They make good TV.
Right. But statistically, your biggest risk is stress or obesity or a car accident on your way to work. News highlights the crazy anomaly, not the boring reality.
Yeah.
It makes the exceptions seem like the rules.
That's that availability bias we'll get to later. If I can think of an example easily, I assume it happens all the time.
Precisely. And he didn't just theorize about this. He actually went and quit the news.
He went cold turkey.
The walk-away experiment. He cut out everything. Newspapers, news apps, TV news. For 3 years.
3 years? That seems impossible today. I feel like I get twitchy if I haven't checked headlines in 3 hours.
I know, right? But what was the result?
Did he become a hermit? Did he not know who the president was?
Quite the opposite. He reported having clearer thoughts, way more time to read deep content like books, less anxiety. And here's the kicker. He missed nothing important.
Nothing? How is that possible?
Because your social network, your actual friends, your colleagues, they act as a filter. If something truly massive happens, like a war starts, someone's going to tell you. You'll hear about it.
So you get the signal, but you filter out all the noise.
You stop reacting to every little blip on the radar that won't matter in 24 hours. It's a powerful idea.
It is a real challenge. So clarity comes from limiting the input from outside. But what about managing our internal energy? That brings us to decision fatigue, chapter 53.
This is huge for anyone who feels totally drained by 3:00 p.m. and can't figure out why.
That's me some days.
We think willpower is a character trait, You're either disciplined or you're lazy. But the research shows willpower is more like a battery. It just gets drained.
And every decision takes a little bit of charge, even the small ones.
Exactly. Blue shirt or white shirt, chicken or fish for lunch, reply to this email now or later. Each one drains the battery.
It's the cumulative load. We don't realize the little decisions cost almost as much as the big ones.
And when that battery's empty, we don't just stop making decisions, we get reckless. Or we just default to the easiest path.
He talks about that terrifying study with judges.
It is terrifying.
Yeah.
They analyzed parole decisions and found that if you went before a judge first thing in the morning, you had about a 65% chance of getting parole.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
But if you appeared right before lunch, your chance dropped to near zero.
0. That can't be right. That means justice depends on the judge's blood sugar.
It's not malice. It's decision fatigue. The judge's brain is tired. Granting parole is a complex, risky, active decision. Denying it is the status quo. It's the easier, safer choice for a tired mind.
Wow. And he connects this to IKEA, of all things, which anyone who's been there can relate to. The sheer exhaustion.
Yes. Why is the cafeteria right in the middle of the store? Think about it. You walk in, you're forced through this maze, you make hundreds of micro decisions. This lamp, this rug, these napkins.
My willpower is draining just thinking about it.
By the time you get to the kitchen section, you're depleted. Your resistance is gone. You're ready to make impulse buys. So what do? They feed you Swedish meatballs to spike your blood sugar so you can keep on shopping.
It's weaponized biology that is brilliant and evil.
It really is.
Okay, so a note to self. Limit news and make important decisions on a full stomach. But what about managing our options? Chapter 68, the inability to close doors. This one hit close to home.
You and pretty much everyone else, we have this irrational obsession with possibility.
Yeah, I like to keep my options open. What's wrong with that?
We think it's free. I might want to learn Spanish later. I might want to take that other job in 3 years. But Dobelli says keeping doors open is incredibly costly. It costs mental energy, focus, anxiety.
He talks about that computer game experiment that showed just how irrational we are about it.
The Airely and Shin experiment, it was simple. Players clicked on doors on a screen to win money. But if you didn't click on a door for a while, it would shrink and then vanish forever.
And people couldn't stand that.
It went crazy. They were running around clicking on all the doors just to keep them from disappearing, even if those doors weren't paying out well.
Even though the winning strategy was obvious, right?
The winning strategy was to find the best door and just camp out there, let the others vanish. But they couldn't do it. They were willing to lose money just to avoid the feeling of a lost option.
We pay a premium for the luxury of maybe.
That's it, exactly. And real strategy in business or in life is about closing doors. It's saying what you will not do. You have to slam some doors shut so you can focus on the room you're actually in.
Otherwise, you're just living in a drafty hallway, proud of all the rooms you could enter.
What a haunting image.
Yeah.
But it's true.
Yeah. Speaking of focus, let's talk about the Zeigarnik effect. That feeling of having like 1,000 tabs open in your brain.
Yes, named after Bluma Zeigarnik. She was a psychologist in the 1920s, and she was in a restaurant and noticed something about the waiters.
What was it?
They could remember these incredibly complex orders for huge tables perfectly until the food was served. The second the plate hit the table and the task was done.
We forgot everything.
Instantly, the brain just dumped the cash. The insight is that uncompleted tasks just gnaw at us. They stay in our brain's RAM, using up resources. All those little, I need to call mom, I need to fix the car. They create this low-level anxiety.
But the solution can't be to just do everything right now. That's impossible.
No, and that's the genius of it. You don't have to complete the task to clear your mind. You just need a concrete plan.
So it's about certainty.
Exactly. This is very Getting Things Done by David Allen. If you just write down, I will call the mechanic Tuesday at 9 a.m., your brain trusts you. It says, okay, it's captured. I can let go now. The anxiety goes away not because the task is done, but because the uncertainty is gone.
So clarity isn't just about willpower. It's about architecture. Limit news, make decisions when you're fresh, close doors, and write down plans. That's how we simplify.
That's the foundation. And once you have that clarity, you have to protect it. Which brings us right to your second pillar, building resilient thought patterns.
Right. How do we handle new information? Because often we handle it really poorly. We treat it like it's an enemy invasion.
And that's where we have to talk about the mother of all fallacies, confirmation bias.
I was waiting for this one.
Chapters 7 and 8. If you only remember one thing from this whole deep dive, this should probably be it. Confirmation bias is our tendency to interpret new information so that it fits with what we already believe.
We're not scientists looking for truth.
We're lawyers building a case. We shine a spotlight on anything that proves us right, and we just ignore or explain away everything that proves us wrong.
The Google example from the book is perfect for this.
It is. We see a super successful company like Google, and we see it has a playful, creative culture. Beanbags, free food, all that stuff. So the business gurus write articles. Creativity leads to success. They confirm the link. What they ignore, the disconfirming evidence, are the thousands of failed startups that had the exact same beanbags and went bankrupt.
And they also ignore the boring, successful companies that are totally rigid and bureaucratic.
Exactly. They only see the data that fits the narrative they want to tell. And we do this in our personal lives constantly. If you believe you're unlucky, you will notice every single time you stub your toe and completely forget every time you hit a green light.
You curate your own reality to fit your script. So how do we fight this? It feels so automatic.
It is automatic, which means you have to fight it manually. Dobelli points to Charles Darwin, who was a genius not just for his ideas, but for his intellectual honesty.
What did he do?
He knew his brain would naturally want to forget anything that contradicted his theory of evolution, so he carried a notebook specifically to write down disconfirming evidence. The moment he saw something that didn't fit, he wrote it down immediately.
He forced himself to confront the things that could prove him wrong. That takes some serious humility.
It does. The advice is to murder your darlings. If you have a belief you cherish, your job is to actively hunt for evidence that proves you wrong.
That is tough and painful. Speaking of pain, let's talk about the sunk cost fallacy. This is why we stay in bad relationships and finish terrible books.
Or sit through an awful movie because I've already spent $30 on the ticket.
That's the one.
The money is gone. It's in the past. It doesn't matter for the future. But we just hate to admit waste. We feel like by stopping, we're cementing the loss.
And we see this on a huge scale with things like government projects. The Concorde effect.
That's the classic example, the Concorde supersonic jet.
Yeah.
Long before it was finished, the data showed it was never going to be profitable. It was a financial disaster.
But they'd already spent so much.
So much money and national pride, they couldn't stop. So they kept throwing good money after bad, just to save face. They ran it at a loss for decades, just to avoid admitting the initial mistake.
It's the same tragic logic from the Vietnam War. We've lost too many lives to stop now.
Which is just heartbreaking. It implies that adding more loss will somehow fix the previous loss. The rational approach is to look only at the future. It doesn't matter if you've invested 10 years or $10 million. If the future looks bad, you stop.
That takes a lot of courage. It requires admitting you were wrong. And that leads to how we don't remember being wrong. The falsification of history.
Chapter 78. He calls it the Winston Smith effect from 1984.
Where the job is to rewrite old newspapers.
Right, to make the government look like it was always right. Our brains do the same thing for our own ego. We constantly rewrite our own memories to make it seem like we were right all along.
I knew that stock was going to crash. I knew that relationship would never work. We all say that.
After the fact, yes. You probably didn't know. You were probably uncertain. But now that it's happened, your brain just overwrites the old memory of uncertainty with a new memory of conviction. It cleans up your personal history.
The study about the Challenger explosion proved this in a really scary way, didn't it?
Oh, yes. The research on flashbulb memories, we think these huge, tragic events are burned into our minds like a photo.
Mm-hmm.
Researchers asked students to write down where they were the day after the Challenger exploded. 3 years later, they asked them the same question again.
And the stories had changed.
Completely. Different rooms, different people, different sources for the news. But, and this is the crazy part, they were 100% confident their new false memory was the correct one.
Even when they were shown their own handwriting.
Some of them still couldn't believe it. They'd say, that's my handwriting, but that's not what happened.
So we can't even trust our own biography.
Not entirely. And that's why resilience means acknowledging that your memory is a reconstruction, not a perfect recording.
And that leads right into the introspection illusion. We think we can find the truth just by looking inside ourselves.
Chapter 67. We have this huge double standard. If I see you taking vitamins, I might think, oh, he's just falling for some marketing.
Right, I'm skeptical of your reasons.
But if I take vitamins, I think, well, I've researched this impartially. I've weighed the pros and cons. I've made a rational choice.
We judge them by their actions, but we judge ourselves by our pure, objective, internal feelings.
Which are often a complete fabrication. We just make up stories to justify our gut feelings. Dobelli's advice here is pretty harsh. Treat your own internal convictions with the same skepticism you treat a used car salesman's pitch.
Ouch. Just because you feel it's true doesn't mean it is.
Sure, just as biased as everyone else.
Okay, this is a lot, but it's so important. We've cleared the clutter. We're building resilience. Now I want to get practical. Let's build a Thinking Clearly toolkit.
I like it.
We're going to do a rapid-fire review of 5 ways of thinking clearly review. 5 specific mental tools from the book you can use to check your own thinking. Ready?
Let's do it.
Tool number 1, avoiding survivorship bias.
This is chapter 1 for a reason. It's everywhere. We overestimate our chances of success because failure is invisible. You see the one rock star on stage. You don't see the 10,000 talented musicians in their basements who never made it.
So we end up studying the winners and getting a distorted picture.
Exactly. You might mistake their luck for a repeatable strategy. The fix is simple but profound. Visit the cemetery. Look at the failed projects, the bankrupt companies. They often did the same things as the winners. That's where you learn the true odds.
Okay. Tool number 2, recognizing the swimmer's body illusion.
This one is so good because it flips cause and effect.
Yeah.
We look at a professional swimmer and think, if I swim a lot, I'll get that perfect body.
But that's not how it works, is it?
It's the other way around. People who are born with that V-shaped body type become great swimmers because they're built for it. The body is a selection factor, not a result of the training.
It's like Harvard. Is the school great, or does it just pick the best students who would succeed anyway?
Exactly. The fix is to be really wary of self-help promises that say, do this and you'll get this result. Look at the raw material first.
Got it. Tool number 3, ignoring social proof.
This is the herd instinct. If everyone in a crowd looks up at the sky, you look up too. You don't even think about it. It's why canned laughter in sitcoms actually works.
Ugh, I hate canned laughter. But you're right, I still find myself laughing.
It works. It tricks your brain into thinking something is funny because other people think it's funny. The fix is that great quote, if 50 million people say something foolish, it is still foolish.
Popularity isn't a proxy for truth?
Not at all. Be skeptical when the only reason to do something is because everyone else is doing it.
Good one. Tool number 4, questioning authority bias.
We just automatically suspend our critical thinking when someone in a white lab coat or a fancy suit starts talking. It's deeply ingrained.
The Milgram experiments showed that in a really dark way.
People were willing to electrocute someone just because a scientist told them to. And Dobelli points out that so-called experts, especially in complex fields like economics, have terrible track records.
Yeah, almost none of them predicted the 2008 crash.
Exactly. So the fix is to challenge authority. Separate the message from the messenger. Their track record is often no better than random chance.
Okay, last one. Tool number 5, calculating the planning fallacy.
We are just terrible at estimating how long things will take. We always assume the best case scenario. Oh, I can write that report in 2 days. We'll renovate the kitchen in a week.
Never happens. It always takes longer and costs more.
Always. Because we use the inside view, we're optimistic about our own specific project. The fix is to use the outside view. Don't ask how long it'll take you. Ask, how long did it take other people to do the same thing?
And there's that great exercise, the pre-mortem.
Yes, brilliant. Before you start, you imagine it's a year from now and the project has failed spectacularly. Then you write the history of why it failed. It forces you to see all the risks you're ignoring in your optimism.
That is a solid toolkit. Survivorship, swimmer's body, social proof, authority, and planning fallacy.
And remember, these aren't just academic terms. They are the filters we see the world through. If the filter is dirty, the view is distorted.
So wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway? We have the via negativa, simplification, fighting our own faulty brains.
It all comes back to that core idea. We don't need to be smarter. We don't need a higher IQ. We just need to be less irrational. Dobelli distinguishes between hot and cold irrationality.
Hot is emotional, right? Getting angry and doing something dumb.
Right. But what we've been talking about today is cold irrationality. These are the systematic wiring errors that happen when we're calm, when we think we're being perfectly logical.
Ones that sneak up on you.
Exactly. And that's why you need the checklist. For small decisions, Diet Pepsi or regular, trust your gut. Who cares? Save your energy. But for the big decisions, career, marriage, a huge investment, you cannot trust your intuition.
Your intuition is designed for berry picking, not stock picking.
Precisely. You have to get out the checklist and use these cold, rational tools to check your thinking.
It's like what Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger said. We have not learned how to solve difficult business problems. What we have learned is to avoid them.
That's the via negativa in a nutshell. You win by not losing. You succeed by not being stupid. It's not sexy, but it works.
But a provocative thought to leave you with. If we are defined by what we remove, what is the one thing in your life right now? A belief, a habit, a commitment, maybe a news app that is not David. What can you chisel away today to see things just a little more clearly?
That's the work of a lifetime.
Indeed it is. That wraps up our deep dive into the art of thinking clearly. We hope you found some tools to sharpen your thinking. Thank you for watching. Please like food, share, subscribe, follow up in next video.